Okay, here we go again. Now, the first thing I'm noticing is the difference in the head shape. I'm definitely going to have to work that in here a little bit before I get too far ahead. Let's see here. Okay. Now this figure will have hair, so it doesn't have to be that precise. The shape of the top of the head, because a lot of this will be covered, but you still want to get as close as you can. Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with the brow line. Okay. What's kind of tough with this is the subject here, the images I have to go off of come from some live streams and some candid pictures where like there's some smiling going on and things like that, which of course really skew your likeness. Most people aren't used to looking at everyone while they're making facial expressions. Let's get a little bit creative here. This is where the caricature elements come in, because you have to add some things in here that would suggest the likeness that people are used to seeing, rather than just a couple things here with. I keep looking at this. There's a little bit of Darren McGavin going on in here. Unfortunately, I'm not sculpting Darren McGavin. I am going to have to do a little trimming here by the nose. It's always tricky when you're using a knife to take away little bits and pieces, because you're always overly cautious about not too much. Of course, here we are at the tricky part here with the nostrils. There's always difficult. This line here where the upper lip meets the cheek is also pretty tricky. It can really make or break a sculpture, or a likeness anyway. Now, the lips on the subject are kind of thin. I have to be very careful here. Now, let's see if we can find a better source with like a neutral expression. bad part about going off of candid photos is that people tend to smile a lot in them. And that's not helpful. I may have said this before, but I've noticed that the ladies that I have been making sculptures for, they like a little bit of a smile in their likeness. The guys are okay with, like, you know, kind of like the more dour expression. I just refuse to sculpt teeth. There's very, very, very few professional sculpts out there that are look good when you have teeth sculpted onto them. Okay, right here, I'm working on this left side at the moment. Once I get the left side kind of where I want it, then I'm going to go over and do the right side, which is actually on my left. I'll have something I can balance it against. I really need a team of ninjas to go around and private investigators and, like, here, go and take some random pictures of these people. Sometimes you want it to be a surprise. Sometimes it's, well, generally speaking, it is much better if they know it's coming, because that way you can really work with some better photo resources, but it takes a little of the fun out of it. Coffee? It's never too late for coffee. Earlier this morning, I was working on fleshing out my own collection a little bit. You have to sort of do a little of this for everybody else, do a little bit for yourself. So, as I said before, I'm much more of a fan of the materials that were produced in the comic books, the comic book versions of things, than I was with, in this case, the Marvel Universe version, or Marvel Cinematic Universe version. So, specifically, I didn't like the casting choices with some of the characters in Doctor Strange. Now, if you didn't know, in the comic book, Wong was sort of like Doctor Strange's butler. His family had been dedicated to serving the Sorcerer Supreme for generations and took that duty very, very seriously. And of course, Baron Mordo was a Transylvanian nobleman. And Chiwetel Ejiofor, yeah, I don't think he's passing for Transylvanian anytime soon. Which is a shame because I think it's a waste, such a waste of such a great actor. There's so many parts that he could have played. Like, for example, if you wanted to make sure that you're casting a black actor in Doctor Strange, you had a perfect opportunity with Brother Voodoo. And if you're not familiar with the character, Marvel has so many magical and sorcery related characters. And Brother Voodoo is one of them. As the name would suggest, he was a doctor whose brother Daniel has used Jericho drum, and he went into medicine and science while his brother embraced their traditional Jamaican voodoo religion. And his brother was killed, and to avenge his brother, he took up the study and practice of voodoo. And one of the things that they did was he absorbed his brother's consciousness into himself, and so now you actually had two sorcerers for the price of one. Let's see something here. Excuse me 1 second. Okay. Back to the grind. So he would have been fabulous as Brother Voodoo. Unfortunately, the fellow that they had Caecilius kill in the first one was Daniel Drum, who would be the brother's spirit who kind of got absorbed into the body, and helps out his brother Jericho. In modern times they've actually utilized this where Brother Voodoo was the sorcerer supreme at one point. They also had Dr. Druid, which he was Anthony Druid, which is like, wait a second, Anthony is an Italian name, and like you're talking Dr. Druid, and he should be very, very, very Celtic. But yeah, it didn't happen. So, and he was sort of an arrogant jerk in the comic, which, in my experience, being very Irish, don't have a whole lot of really. You got some headstrong and argumentative, but generally speaking, at least in my family, we don't have anybody who's really arrogant. But, one of those things where he could have been, what does this have to do with sculpting? So I thought to myself, well, who would have been a really excellent Baron Mordo that you could have, been a sinister bad guy? Because, that's one of Marvel's biggest downfalls, is that they don't have any good villains, because they usually kill them all. So I ordered a Joaquin Phoenix Joker head sculpt off of eBay, do a little kit bash, and Joaquin Phoenix with a goatee added is going to be my comic book accurate Baron Mordo. And if they ever make a Chiwetel Ejiofor head sculpt, or I might have to do it myself, he will be my Brother Voodoo. But he's not really Jamaican. He's not Jamaican enough. That's the beauty of having a 6-scale collection, is it can be whoever you want it to be. You can make things exactly how you like it. I've never been a real big DC collector. And it's a shame because if I were to set myself up a shelf of action figures, and I will probably end up doing this at some point, like getting a Henry Cavill sculpt, and he will be my Captain Britain on my shelf. Christopher Reeve will always be my favorite Superman. And if you have a collection, you could have, like in my opinion, I would have a Ben Affleck Batman, Christopher Reeve as Superman, next to the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. As much as I love Linda Carter, incredibly beautiful woman. She did more, well, back then, there was a Charlie's Angels effect where, she did her action scenes like a beauty queen instead of a kick-ass Amazon woman. Joaquin Phoenix with his, I used a little millie putt and sculpted on a little goatee for him. It'll look very sinister. I've already done a proper ancient one. It was actually Tibetan. Sorry, Xi Jinping, but Tibet is Tibet, not part of China. It's like Taiwan is Taiwan and not part of China. It's the same thing with Idris Elba. They felt the need to go make him Heimdall, and they're going to make a smaller character into more of a major character, when Idris Elba would have been the perfect casting choice for Blade, because Blade is in fact British. I know everybody thinks, no, Blade's Wesley Snipes. Well, before Blade was Wesley Snipes, Blade was British. Of course, I'm sure we're going to get some version of Blade where the villain will probably be well, it's going to be interesting to see how they make Blade take second fiddle to a woman of some kind. It's a shame because Marvel has always had so much, diversity. I hate using the word. Marvel's always been on the front lines of, like, you know why? Because diversity actually looks a little bit like free market capitalism, because you want to appeal to as many people as you can. But you can't just do it for the sake of doing it. You have to, like, actually make compelling characters. I think those of us that were alive back then, when the comic book creators were so close to the classic creators and they wanted to emulate them, and the thing they wanted the most was to have acceptance from those classic creators, have them appreciate the modern takes on the work. Nowadays, these people are so arrogant. They get in there and they, oh, I'm going to do this character right. I got into an internet argument one time with a woman in the old, back when we used to do the old forums and things like that, online forums. And subject of Captain America came up, and she was so insistent that Captain America would have been some sexist and bigoted, like him, because that's what that generation was like. And I had to inform her, like, you have no idea what you're talking about. I studied all about this in school. Well, that's great, but I was raised by two people of that generation, so I actually generally knew them. I hear all this stuff about, like, strong, independent women and stuff, and I'm like, all the women that have been in my life that I grew up with were freaking tough. My great grandmother, she was widowed a month before my grandmother was born. My grandfather was killed in a train accident back in 1895, I believe my grandmother was born. I have to look it up, but pretty sure. And my great grandmother went and made her own very successful milliner shop making hats. Nobody in the Kensington and Port Richmond areas in Philadelphia would go to church every Sunday without a Mary Mitchell hat on her head. She met her second husband, John Mitchell, and boom, she became a very successful, and was also one of the first women to hold public office in Philadelphia back in the 1920s. Might have been 30s. And pretty impressive for a woman whose parents were right off the boat from Ireland. Mary Lynch. And my mom's mom owned 3 hair salons by herself in the 60s, 50s and 60s. Became a very successful entrepreneurial hairdresser. She actually had a black woman on staff too, because she understood that, like, white women didn't have much experience doing Black women's hair, and she wanted to have that opportunity for her customers, so she hired a woman that could handle that. I keep banging into this microphone stand with these goggles. That's a big thump. All right, time to check the profile reference. Let's see if I can. There we go. Well, I definitely got to make that chin a little bit bigger. Okay. I put the jaw back a little too far. Bring that up a little bit. Okay. Let's work on the chin first. This fellow's going to have a goatee anyway, so we'll be able to dress it out, but you want to get as close as possible. Boom. Funny, fingers, I think, are always the best sculpting tools. Unfortunately, they, especially my big fat beat up fingers, are a little tough to get in there and work all the detail you need to. So lots and lots of sculpting tools are necessary. I do have one really good reference photo. It's got a lot of shadow in it. That's going to help me a lot with this to show me some of the shape of like the cheeks and stuff like that. They're usually kind of blended in a little bit. All the time I've done this, I think I've only had one person say like that. Yeah, it looks nothing like me. Of course, that was also another example of like I really didn't have much to go off of. Just a few photos here and there you can kind of pick up, and nothing is really of a neutral expression. Okay, there's that. This guy's nose is kind of distinctive. I think I may have made the cheekbones a little bit high. Line on the upper lip needs a little bit of adjusting. Yeah, definitely got to adjust that upper lip. Check my sources here. Okay. So I need a little drop in the cheek around to here. I'm gonna rough it in, make it a little bit bigger than it needs to be. Whenever I make these lines in the jaw here, I can't help but think of the Jack in the Box on Charlie Brown Christmas Special. Nobody wants a Charlie in the box. Guess what my name is? Jack? No, Charlie. Nobody wants a Charlie in the box. The Island of Misfit Toys. Let's check a couple other source pictures here. Okay. And I'm going to have to put, there's a high cheekbone here that goes right into the ear. Cut that in there. Cut that in there. Okay. This guy here. Good idea. Let's have some coffee. God, I love coffee. My blood type is Colombian. Well, I have been to Jamaica, and they had some really good Blue Mountain coffee. Wow. I'll go back there someday. Come back to Jamaica. I think I need to raise that upper lip. It's come down a little bit too far. So his upper lip is actually more about this way. Like that. And a little bit more straight line there. Okay, pull this away here. Little pull this away here. There. Okay. Smooth this around here like that. Lips are tricky. Lips are very tricky to do. Well, put it this way, lips are tricky to do and get the look right. The shape of the mouth is definitely vital to a person's appearance and likeness. Okay. Bottom lip is going to be tricky here. Very thin lips, but it's not really lips so much. I guess, you have to define what lip is. Because you got like, the lip tissue that's like that we're familiar with, like, the more pink part. But you also have the whole bottom, like lid, if you will, much thicker. And capturing the mouth shape is always a little bit tricky. It's funny, like you think about things that might give you trouble. Like shapes of lips are definitely up there. I think the likeness is actually starting to take on a little bit of a improved likeness there. It's like getting better, which is great, but at the same time, make sure I don't get cocky with it. All right. I'm just going to try roughing at the ear. This fellow's got a unique looking ear shape too. That's pretty good. Helpful anyway. Ooh. Huh. Okay. See, that's telling me something right there. See, over here, like this side here, over here, is actually coming out, the eyebrow is coming out larger and more pronounced. Kind of reel that in a little bit. That's why it's so important to check these things at all your different angles. source. Okay, now when sculpting the ears are probably one of the most difficult things, in my opinion, to sculpt. You would think it's kind of easy, but there's a lot to it. Number one is the correct placement of the ear. Oftentimes they'll be placed either too far back or too far forward. This is where your caliper tools come in really handy. Now, zoom in a little bit. Take my head length here. Ooh. I'm definitely going to have to make some adjustments here because, see, I went a little larger than I should have. And he should be down about like 38 millimeters, about here. I'm going to have to make some adjustments to my head. It doesn't look, so the head doesn't look too large in the body. Okay. So, well, that's not too bad. Oh, that always is a little bit off. Okay, so I go here, right there. And I feel this here. Oh, there we go. Not bad. So my estimation on the ear placement was actually pretty good. Now the back of the ear is always, depending upon how far each person's ears stick out. You should have like an Alfred E. Newman who's got like big protruding ears. And you have a this fella here. His ears are kind of close to his head. Now you see here, like the top of the ear has to be right about there. So I made a little too large. Trim that down a little bit. Trim off the back there a little bit. Trim like this a bit. Oops. I cut his face. I cut his face open. Oh no, I cut his face. Fortunately, he's clay. And I can make it right. That sounds a little bit like Bill Clinton. We're British. I'll say I did not have sex with that woman, that Miss Lewinsky. The old joke back in the day. Hillary says, Chelsea, did you have sex with that boy? Not according to Dad. Okay, now, so I was saying, this guy's got a pretty distinctive earlobe. where it's practically non-existent. So you take this, pull it in here this way, go like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is sort of take this thing here and I'm going to draw in the details of the ear. So okay, put this out like so. There's another little bit here, comes out, and here. Okay, sit that there. Get like a medium stylus, and we start to smooth this out a little bit. Forgot something. I forgot. Not forgotten. Miss have been banished. Yeah, I got a lot of those prequel lines memorized. My son was a little boy when those things came out, and we watched them over and over and over again. Oh, he's too young for Star Wars. No such thing. There's my son with his sippy cup. And he said to me, Daddy, Darth Vader say, Wook, I the Father. He was so cute. I still like him though. Good level-headed young man I got. Okay. I'm pretty happy with the ear. Well, so far anyway. It's like, now the hard part is I got to check this against, the forward view to make sure the ear is actually not coming out too far, because like when you're looking at someone, you want to make sure that they don't have any straight on views of this fella, where he's not wearing headphones. Curses. Okay. Right. There's a suggestion in the one part here that makes it seem that his ear is a little more compact at the bottom, like this, and a little bit more pronounced at the top, like so. Okay, this thing here. Voila. That will work up until I get I should work up until I get the silicone tools out and smooth it out with the alcohol. Take away some of those like scratchier looking parts. Okay, put your other ear on. So you don't look Van Gogh. And, oh. I had a professor in my art history class who was very particular in the correct pronunciation of Vincent van Gogh. He had traveled around a bit and been through the Netherlands and said that the Dutch pronunciation was not like in England, they tend to say Van Gogh. But the Dutch themselves kind of have an issue with that. And they say it's more of a ho. So he would be Vincent van Gogh. But it's certainly not like the G-O pronunciation, Vincent van Gogh, that most Americans pronounce. I said the medications he took to suppress his mental illnesses actually caused him to see those halo effects around lights. So what he painted was actually the way he saw things. If you look at some of his, there's the one painting he did where he's inside of a bar, and you have all those crazy halos around all the interior lights. And that was because it's the way Vincent saw them. And a lot of artists, myself included, who were rather we've all got some like mental and emotional issues, I think. It's how you can express things. Okay, time for a stretch. Oh, God. Phew. I think I'm going to finish up this ear and let him sit for a little bit. So I'm getting itch to move around a little bit. It's going to be a hot one today, 97 degrees in South Jersey, right across the bridge from the city. I walk a couple blocks over, I can see directly across the street, across the river to Philadelphia. I love that city. Although now it's really not the same city anymore. don't believe I have another picture of this guy in a profile on the other side. Oh, maybe I do. Woot. Yes, because oddly enough, ears do not look the same on both sides. It's very strange. Okay. The asymmetry of the ears. That could be a book. Cut around like that. Follow up the inside of the ear a little bit. Ooh. Oh, I'm stupid. Oh, I'm quite stupid. Where the heck did I put my cool little... There they are. I forgot all about these things that I bought a couple weeks ago. Well, okay. Let me put this guy here. Ah, crap. See, this is a problem. This is definitely a problem. See, if I go here, look how much farther I put the one ear up than the other. Oh, idiot. Now, the question is, I actually think I got to move this ear back. I'm going to go back to talking about Vincent again. Yeah, little joke there because I'm cutting off his ear. There's a really good biopic on Vincent Van Gogh with, I believe it's Leonard Nimoy who plays his brother Theo. Who's his primary, his best friend and partner, basically. He would sell his artwork for him. Okay. So I jacked that up a little bit. So I have to go here. Take this and kind of blend in the back of the ear. One thing I found is you're sculpting ears. You don't necessarily want to sculpt them exactly as they would be, kind of raised, because it makes like an undercut that you have to try and compensate for while you're molding and casting. So what I like to do is sort of make it a little bit more flat on the back side and one solid piece, especially if you have a character or a likeness that's going to have hair. Be a little bit different with a bald character, but you put this here like this, and that way the ear becomes like a solid piece when it's cast. See, if you're to look at your average person, like the ears wouldn't be like that. They would be raised and thinner and stuff. But because you're going to be casting in a resin and the material is going to be a little less forgiving, you want to make it a little bit different. This guy here. And scoopy scoop there. Okay. Flip around to the side. Okay. Do this. Something like that. Run the line up like that. There's a little ridge here in the ear. Okay. Right there. Okay. Okay, we'll go back to this ear. It's very interesting how the ears can look so very different on each side of the body. Okay. Okay. So I think this is where I'm going to leave off for a bit. Right there. Let's see if we can. And what I'll do is I'll come back a little bit. I'm going to have to make some adjustments. I have to make these chin lines and jaw lines a little bit more distinct. I'll have to trim away some of the clay on the bottom, smooth out some of the other areas, and start hitting it with the silicone tips and the smoothing. You got to get rid of some of these lines in the face that are making the subject look older than he actually is. One of the problems with, like, the bald head, it makes him look like, everybody always says it's like, I couldn't see who it was. But then once you add hair and things like that, it becomes a little bit more apparent. The likeness kind of jumps out a little bit. Okay, that's about it for now. Thanks for watching.